guys, welcome back to Grazy TV. Today's episode, your mind will be blown. I will be actually talking to a real CID agent. CID is a criminal investigation department in the United States. They investigate felony crimes and serious violations of military law and the US Code within the United States Army. This is Mr. Tom Burns. He was a CID agent. He worked all around the world, and he was the agent who actually worked on the Itaewon Case and many other famous cases in Korea. He was also the person who actually arrested Arthur Patterson. Yes, the Arthur Patterson and Edward Lee. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Itaewon Case is one of the biggest cases in Korea. You guys can watch the video I did about it, and to sum it up really quickly, because I know most of you guys did watch it, it is a famous case where there's two suspects who killed an innocent victim. But the crazy thing is they're pointing at each other that they are the victims. It's a crazy case because Edward Lee was first convicted as the real murderer, then he was released, then there was no one responsible for this murder, but then 18 years later, the police did crack down on Arthur Patterson, arrested him 18 years later. But still to this day, the public doesn't know the truth because Arthur Patterson is still claiming that he was not the murderer, and he's pointing at his former friend. There's also a lot of rumors and criticism against this case because the crime scene was clean like the next day, the police did not do DNA testing, there's rumors about the lie detector test and that did it really happen. I mean, there's just so many questions that people had, and today we're gonna crack down what the real truth is and ultimately who actually did it. So now from here, we're gonna go back 22 years ago, back to 1997. So how crazy was the Itaewon Case for a criminal investigator who has done this all his life?
Do you think this was one of the biggest cases?
It's up there in the top 5. The problem with this case, or I should say what makes this case so interesting, is the fact that this victim was innocent, completely innocent. He had done nothing at all to Patterson or to Lee. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
There's a lot of rumors and criticism regarding the crime scene because the Burger King bathroom was actually cleaned up right after the crime scene.
Were you at the Burger King crime scene before they cleaned it up?
Yes, I was. The floor was covered in blood, and the walls were covered in blood too, because the victim, after he'd been stabbed, he was stabbed in his carotid artery. This blood squirted all over the walls in the Itaewon Burger King restroom.
And there was a rumor that people cleaned up right after the next day. Is that usual with these kind of cases?
It's very unusual, and I don't know why they cleaned up so quick. If I would have been in charge of the crime scene, I would have kept it.
Do you think it has to do with some of the victims or the suspects, or?
You know, I'm not sure. I think they wanted to avoid embarrassment to Burger King's restaurant.
What really happened to the crime weapon? There was really no clarifications on what happened to the weapon, what happened to the clothing.
I did hear also rumors that Patterson and Lee threw some items, like the knife, somewhere else. Were you able to retrieve that?
Yes, I retrieved his knife from a sewer ditch on the Yongsong Army base. And I also retrieved his bloody pants and his bloody shirt, Patterson's.
Is there any Lee stuff?
No. The only thing we took of Lee's was his shoes, and his shoes had minor blood spatter on them. He left his shoes outside of his house. So we went to his house to look for him, and we looked down and we saw the blood on the shoes, and so we just took them.
Oh my god. And you guys arrested them right at the spot?
Yeah, actually Lee turned himself in.
Oh.
And Patterson we arrested on the spot.
What was his response when he was at the police station, if you were there?
He just kept saying Patterson did it, Patterson did it.
Now, I personally don't remember reading anywhere that Edward Lee actually turned himself in, which I didn't even know until Mr. Burns clarified this. So I really wanted to know what Patterson's reaction was and how Patterson was caught.
He was hiding from the Korean National Police and from Army CID. And we caught him at the Dragon Hill Lodge. It's a hotel on the Yongsong Army base, which is located about a half a mile from Itaewon.
Were you the one who personally got him, or did you see him after?
No, I personally arrested Patterson myself.
And what was his reaction?
He said, "What do you want with me?"
Really?
I said, "I want a lot. We have a lot of talking to do."
Did you need to do any forceful things to Patterson, or was he?
No, I just told him, you're under arrest, and he said, okay.
So Lee was actually first convicted as the real killer, but it was later revealed that Lee only initiated the murder and he was not the actual suspect. But a lot of people criticized that if Lee initiated the murder, why wasn't he ultimately arrested and convicted? prosecuted.
He was prosecuted the first time, and he was found guilty. And under Korean law, you can't prosecute somebody for the same crime 2 times. And at this point, you gotta understand, Grace, at this point, we were concerned about making sure that Patterson was held responsible for his crime.
What do you think about like someone that initiated and was with Patterson? Should he also be prosecuted?
Absolutely. Absolutely. For aiding and abetting.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main reasons why Arthur Patterson did what he did was because he was a gang member.
I also heard that Patterson was a gang member. Was his friends that he was with them that day all gang members?
No, Patterson was the only one. Patterson claimed he said he was a gang member, so he's self-admission. He dressed like a gang member. He had gang tattoos on him, been arrested in the United States for gang-related crimes, and he's indexed under the California Gangs Association website as a gang member. So then when he came to Korea, he was acting like a gang member, and the kids were making fun of him. They were saying, oh, if you're a big bad gang member, why don't you kill somebody? And he said, okay, I will. And that's when he stabbed the young victim, Mr. Cho.
So you guys know that I talked about how Lee's case was actually overturned and he's a free man. I was surprised to hear that Mr. Burns said he was glad that his case was overturned. And I was actually very shocked to hear this.
No, I'm not sure. I just know that the Korean court system overturned its conviction. I don't know what it was based on or not. But I'm glad that they did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we were able to then go after Patterson.
Because Lee's case was overturned and the DNA evidence pointed that Patterson was the real killer, it gave the investigators chance to go and look out for the real killer, who they believe is Arthur Patterson. The real baffling thing about this case is only 18 years later the DNA evidence was revealed. But they did have the murder weapon and Arthur Patterson's bloody clothes 18 years all along. So what happened to the evidence?
Now, go forward 18 years later, we went to the Korean prosecutor, and the Korean prosecutor said, oh, please, tell me everything you have. So we told them about all the evidence that we had.
18 years later?
Yes.
Why was it 18 years later that there was a new evidence?
Because it was never tested.
Oh, wow. With the knife or the clothes?
With the clothes. We took Patterson's clothes and we sent them to the crime lab. And they found all of Mr. Cho's blood all over Patterson. His shirt and his pants.
Wow, and you could test that 18 years later?
Yes, we could.
Oh my god.
Lee claimed that he was just washing his hands, just looked up, and Arthur Patterson was behind him, killing the victim. This story seems strange to a lot of people because the Burger King bathroom was actually really tight and small. Hard for 2 grown men to be, like walking against each other. So a lot of people were saying, how are you just washing your hands, look up, and not realize what was going on beforehand? I wanted to know if Mr. Barnes actually believed Lee's story.
Yeah, I think he was washing his hands, as he said, and he looked up and he saw Arthur Patterson stabbing the guy.
He somehow initiated before that contact?
Yeah, they were sitting in the Burger King restaurant beforehand. And he was telling Patterson, he was saying, Patterson, why don't you kill somebody? Patterson says, who should I kill? And Lee pointed at the victim, Cho, and said, him, right there.
Did he confess that at first?
Yes.
That statement?
Yeah, Lee was completely cooperative with us.
So he did admit that he initiated it a little bit.
Yes.
So I guess Lee was telling the truth all along. We only have seen little clips on TV 22 years ago of Arthur Patterson and Lee being interrogated. Now there's not a lot of things that Lee and Patterson say in the video, so I wanted to know what was Patterson's reaction, what was his behavior like during the interrogation.
So he was running for the first 24 hours and he was very nervous.
Was he like confessing to anything, like just telling you guys something, nothing?
No, his dad would stop the interview before we could interview him at length because he was a minor.
I mean, did his father believe that his son killed him?
I think at first his father did not want to believe him.
You guys remember the lie detector test? And the results were that Patterson was telling the truth and that Lee was not telling the truth. But Mr. Barnes says that he has no idea where this lie detector thing came about.
I don't know anything about that lie detector test. I know nothing. In fact, I called yesterday and I spoke with another agent that worked on this case with me, and I said, did Patterson and Lee take a lie detector test? And he said, I don't know.
So is that a rumor or just by the Korean police and you guys don't know?
I don't know. It's a rumor right now, but I tell you, when I'm in Korea, I'm going to meet with the Korean police detectives. And I'm going to ask him if he took a polygraph.
So I really wanted to know if Mr. Barnes knows how Lee is doing today in 2019.
What do you think Edward Lee is doing right now?
I don't know. Hopefully he's leading a good life. Hopefully he went to school and he got his education and now he's a productive member of society.
We all know the victim's mother, Mr. Cho's mother, and she was just devastated that this horrific crime has happened to her son. I mean, she explains how son was hardworking, he was always so kind. I was really curious to see if Mr. Barnes has ever met the victim's family.
Yes, I have.
I just wonder what, as a detective, your reaction is when you do see the victims' families.
I feel sad for him. I feel sad for him. Cho's mother said the last time that she saw us, she says, I used to hate all Americans. Now I only hate Patterson. That it was his individual actions that caused the murder of her son.
You guys know that there was a movie made about the Itaewon Case. It went viral in Korea. And in the movie, it shows how Lee's father was kind of powerful. You know, he had a lot of money and he had a big influence on overturning his son's conviction.
Is it true that Lee's father was like this important government person, that he had power?
Not true. Not true.
In the movie, it made him seem like the bad guy.
He had money, but he wasn't connected with the government or with the politics.
So it's been over 4 years since Patterson was convicted and he is in jail for 20 years. And we all want to know how Patterson is doing right now in 2019.
Do you know how Patterson is doing now after he was convicted?
I don't know. I'm going to try to see him when I'm in Korea.
Oh, you're gonna try to like talk to him?
Yeah, I'm going to try to go talk to him.
What would you say?
I would ask him how is he doing, and I would ask him if he would like to tell me the whole story now.
Wow, because in the news it did say he still doesn't admit to it.
Yeah. Well, maybe if he sees me again, he'll admit to it.
What kind of conversations did you have back 20 years ago?
Well, I told him that he was probably sorry for what happened, and he said, yes, I'm sorry.
So is that admitting it or just saying sorry for the situation?
That's an admission, Grace. That's an admission.
So Mr. Barnes says that Patterson actually kind of admitted to the crime. Even in the movie, till the last scene, there's a question about who actually did the murder. I just hope that now we can come down to a final conclusion. So not only about the Itaewon Case, I just had so many questions about the life of a CID agent who has to work on crimes all their life.
Are you able to distinguish your normal life when you just have to see constantly these brutal things?
A lot of what we see stays with us. And I've seen some pretty crazy things. You know, you learn to turn it off, Grace, but it's always there.
Do you ever have like nightmares, or like do some people get PTSD?
A lot of people that work death investigations get PTSD.
Did you ever have to deal with that, or were you strong enough mentally to kind of now just distinguish?
I'm strong enough mentally, Grace.
Wow. When you ever see these suspects, do you feel bad for them?
Yeah, I feel bad for them. You know, I wonder what happened to them that would make them like this.
I would have thought if they did something horrific, maybe you would feel like you don't deserve to eat or something like that.
Oh, no, you can't do that. You gotta treat people with dignity and respect.
So I really want to see what a real CID agent's point of view is regarding psychics.
Have you ever worked with psychics?
Yes, one time we used a psychic.
Wow, and what do you think about it? Is it useful? No?
She was useful. She was useful. She told me where to go look. And she was right.
Would you use psychics again with big cases?
Sure, absolutely. I'll use anything I can use.
And I really thank Mr. Tom Burns for this amazing interview and the insight of, you know, what it feels like to be a crime investigator. I want you guys to comment down below what you guys thought about this interview, and let me know if there's any crime stories that you guys want me to make a video about. If you guys haven't hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bells, because I reply to all you early birds. See you guys in my next video. Bye!